button. Turn the mic on this time. A couple of weeks ago, I forgot to turn the mic on until I was 5 minutes in. All right, week 4 of 12, blended families, placement of the mantle. Like Carol mentioned a little bit ago, this is one of her favorites. It's probably one of my least favorites because I have to wear a jacket. And it's not that time of year to have to wear one. But anyway, so placement of the mantle. What is a mantle? It's not Mickey. Anybody know that reference? Mickey Mantle? Way back. Anyway, 2 Kings 2:13, we see where Elisha picked up the mantle that fell from Elijah when Elijah was being carried off to heaven in a fiery chariot. Elijah was one of the first who never actually saw death. He was just swooped up. Not resurrected, raptured, I guess that's the word. So Elijah was a student of Elijah, and he asked God for a double portion of the anointing that Elijah had. And when Elijah was carried off to heaven, he dropped his mantle, his robe, let it fall to the ground, and Elisha picked it up and took over the prophet duties. So a mantle is basically the robe worn by prophets, and back in the Old Testament days, it was kind of like an ID badge. You know, the prophets would roam around. They'd go to little town to little town, and you know, as prompted by the Lord, and give a word to that place, or you know, whatever. And they had this special robe on, and when they would arrive at a town, people would be able to recognize this person as a prophet because of the robe. Okay. So it was kind of like an ID badge. Everybody could recognize this person had given their life to the Lord. They had made a lot of sacrifices to be holy and set apart and speak the word of God. And they, you know, obviously they had to spend a lot of time with the Lord to get the word that they were professing. And so at least in certain instances, there was a relatively high level of respect for a prophet, although depending on what the prophet had to say, sometimes they just wanted to kill him, and they did a lot of times. So it was a little bit dangerous to be a prophet because you're telling the truth, and you know, even back then, most people didn't really want to hear the truth. They wanted to hear what they wanted to hear. So it could be dangerous to be a prophet, just like Jesus. You know, he ended up getting killed, but he had a special purpose in all that. That was for our salvation. The prophets, though, you know, even Elijah was the one that called fire down from heaven and destroyed all the Baal prophets and all that kind of stuff. So he had a lot of power, but he also had some issues with depression. And I mean, he wasn't always a happy guy. He was, you know, very troubled a lot of times based on what he knew he had to do. He didn't want to do it. Kind of like who's the guy with the whale? Jonah. He wanted to run. He had an assignment, but he went the other way. He didn't want to go to Nineveh to tell them to straighten up. So he tried to hide and spent some time in the fish, and then got thrown out of the stomach and everything. And then he said, well, okay, I guess I'll do that. On second thought. So placement of the mantle. The big thing here is, we're talking blended families, okay, so this is more than likely not a first marriage situation, although it could be for somebody. What we see a lot of times nowadays is that someone who is never married has children. So it could be a first marriage, but they have kids. And what we see a lot is somebody with kids, never married, getting married to somebody that has kids that's been married before at least once. Right? So, a couple of old TV references here. So we're basically going from who's the boss to married with children. And that's where there's a lot of trouble. A lot of opportunity for conflict, right? You got who's the boss, so you got two single parents, or at least one who is a parent and maybe one that isn't, but you know, for this class we like to just throw, everybody's got kids. So two single parents have to figure out how to become one flesh. And more often than not, there's been at least a few years where the single parent has been a single parent. So they're used to calling the shots. You know, these are my kids. I'm calling the shots. And, oh, I'm interested in this other person now. And they have kids. How's that going to work? But this is what makes the blended family so difficult. Most people, like the husband and wife, can usually get along okay. And we've had a lot of people come through the counseling sessions, and it's like, you know, when the kids are gone, we're great.
Yeah.
It's when the kids are around, you know, yours come in on the weekend, you know, mine go away on the weekend, you know, back and forth and back in and out and all kinds of stuff. And one of the hardest things is for a single parent to understand they don't own their kids. Kids are from God, they belong to God. And your job is to be a good steward of His kids, right? And if you see it that way, it's a lot easier to adopt everybody into the same family. But single parents we just saw it over and over and over again, and that's kind of what helped put that pyramid thing together, is these parents come in feeling like they own their kids and they want to protect their kids because they're theirs. And so they have that tendency to put their kids above this new spouse. And more than likely the other person does the same thing. And so then you end up with, I have a certain set of rules for my kids, and you do whatever you want with yours, right? And it creates a lot of problems because the kids know what's going on.
There's also another scenario, like great friends of ours, the husband is an instant step-parent, never had children, and the mother, or the wife, has children. He doesn't understand why the children, that in his eyes, why are you putting your kids over something that we should be doing? If they already had plans to go to dinner with somebody else, and all of a sudden the kids are coming over. Why do we have to change our plans? That's something I'm not used to doing, of putting yourself out, changing your schedule to satisfy the kids. Because he's never had to worry about anybody else other than himself. Mm-hmm. And that created a whole lot of problems with them the first 5 years they were married. He did not understand the parental relationship because he's always just had himself. Mm-hmm. Just recently, and they've been married now 21 years, just recently, he said, I finally get it. They got grandkids. And they even had two of the grandkids live with them for 6 months because one of the daughters was training to be a long-distance truck driver, and she had to be on the road. And so she asked the mom, her mom, if they would take the two littler ones while she did that. And he didn't understand that, didn't like that, but she's gonna do what she wants to do anyway, is what he said. But having those two grandkids around for that year changed his whole attitude. He got to see firsthand having it be responsible to children and to answering to somebody else, because it was his job to help get them ready to go to church. He never had to do that. So there's a different scenario to that side as well, Larry.
Yeah, good. But that's where the work needs to take place. That's why it's so important to do the premarital counseling. Some of you were at our place yesterday. We had a premarital seminar. But when two people that have kids try to become a new one flesh, there's so many things that they have to get straightened out in their thinking, right? I mean, it's a great opportunity to be a positive influence in some kid's life.
Right.
As a step-parent, right? That's a big opportunity, if you look at it as an opportunity and not a pain in the butt.
Well, and every child really is supposed to be thought of as a gift from God.
Right. So if you come in and you know, from a Christian perspective, you see all these kids, no matter where they came from, as gifts from God, and my job is to train them up in the way they should go and then give them back to God, right? That's our job as parents. Train up the child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. So there's this time when they're young, they depart from it, but they come back when they're old. That was one of those tiny revelations I got a few months ago. It's like, when they're old, they won't depart from it. So what's in between there? They're probably gonna depart. And that's what's hard for parents, right? You see your kids out there doing stuff. You just keep praying for them, knowing God's still on the throne, and His Word says, if you've done your job, they'll be okay later. So, anybody got any other comments as far as two single parents and the ownership of the children and any of that kind of stuff? Any? No? In agreement?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that happened to us when we first got together was, even though I already had two boys, I didn't see them that often. They lived with their mom almost full time. So I was almost at that state, you know, of mind where it was just me. And as long as child support and alimony, everything was fine. And all of a sudden, having two kids again at the house full time, I'd been divorced for almost 7 years. And just getting up and leaving and coming back, I only saw my kids, you know, a couple of weekends a month. So for the rest of the time, I didn't have to answer or do anything. I stay up late, wake up late, it didn't matter.
Go out party.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden having this little person come to our bedroom going, when are we having breakfast? Kid, there's cereal, you know, go get you something. What do you want from me?
You know where the bowls and the
Just because we
spoons
got
are.
married, nothing changed. The cereal's still the same flat.
But all of a sudden, and then when they realized that I like to cook and I do most of the cooking, they would just skip over their mom, or they would message her, Mom, when's Jesus making dinner? What are we having for lunch? Can you please ask him? So all of a sudden I had that responsibility again, and it was an adjustment.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so that's where a lot of people struggle in a blended family, is trying to figure out how to change from being a single parent and having mother and father duties to, if you're the mom, how do you share this parenting with somebody different? How do you trust them with your property, right? Well, you gotta trust God. You don't trust the other person, you trust God, right? So that's one of the big issues. That's why we always go back to the pyramid. when you get the pyramid in the right order, these things usually work out pretty well. Okay. Going back to the.
Can I interject a little bit? I'm sorry.
Sure.
We
Anytime.
have a leadership couple that's gonna have to leave here shortly, and I wanna make sure they see the visual
Yeah.
that you have. So can you hop around
It's gonna be right here.
to go to that one, so, cause I wanna make sure they see it. Okay.
It'll work. You gotta
All right.
leave when?
Thank you.
We're on 10.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
So, we go back to the Garden of Eden, and everything was perfect, right? God had created Adam from the dirt in his image. Remember that point, because we're gonna be talking about it down here as well. And Eve was created from Adam, and shortly after that, then sin entered because the serpent snuck in. But after the sin entered, then there were curses. And I felt it was rather profound that Adam was not cursed directly. Okay? Now remember, Adam was created in God's image. God's probably not going to curse himself. So he did not curse Adam, but he cursed the ground. So now Adam's going to have to work for a living. He's going to have to till the soil to provide for his family. And at that point, it was just the wife. But he had to work for a living. That was his curse. Eve was cursed directly. It was on her. It's going to be pain in childbirth. And this is the big one. Her desire would be to want to control her husband. But he would rule over her. Now, rule in this case is the same kind of rule that is talked about, like in the Old Testament, of an evil king. So she's going to have to be in submission to an evil king. It's not going to be pretty. And especially if she keeps trying to control him, it's going to get ugly. All right. So basically, there's built-in conflict in marriage from the beginning. All right. Now, what we see a lot of times in marriages today, especially, is, and I'm guilty of it myself up to a point, is, yeah, you know, you're the mom, you got the kids, I'm sort of just here, you know, I'm here to love you, and you take care of the kids, and that kind of stuff. So I was not feeling like I was like the head of anything, you know, I'm just this new guy in this family, right? But how can I be in charge of anything? I'm the new guy. I got no seniority over anything. But Rosa, if you'll join me up here. What happens, because Adam was not cursed, but the ground was, he's going to have to work for a living. Now, like I said in the beginning, this is the
So the camera,
yeah, one over here.
Oh.
Watch the cord.
that's good.
Especially here in Phoenix in the summertime, the last thing I want to do is wear a jacket,
Right?
right?
Yes.
So, but this is my mantle, all right? This is what shows I'm being the prophet, priest, and king in my home, and I'm the head, not the tail, and you know, all those kind of things. But it's Phoenix, it's still almost 100 degrees out there right now, even though it's almost October. So, and because of the curse, and I have to work, you know, there's times I'm lazy. Okay, so what do? I don't want to be in charge. I just want to sit back, watch TV,
Go to
and
your nothing box.
and be in my nothing box. And hey, is my sandwich ready yet?
Yeah, right.
You know?
Let me
And
serve you.
So what I do, you know, like visually speaking, what I tend to do is take my mantle off, That feels better. I'm good. Put it on. So what happens, right? I'm supposed to be wearing this thing. That's my robe. I'm the priest. I'm the prophet. I'm supposed to be prophet, priest, and king. I'm supposed to be speaking the word of God. I'm supposed to be providing the spiritual covering over my family. I'm supposed to be govern and guarding my family, you know. God has established me as the one who is accountable and responsible for what he has given me. A wife is a good thing. She's a gift, right? So I have to be a good steward of what God gives me. But because I get lazy and the curse and all that, I have this tendency to take off my mantle and just lay it or throw it down. Well, part of wearing the mantle like I'm supposed to is providing security for my spouse. And because of her curse and that desire to be in control, she's like, well, if you're not going to wear it, I will.
Right.
Right? Well, obviously it's not meant for her to wear. Sleeves are a little long, the shoulders are too wide, you know, it's way too big. That's why I picked you.
Okay.
Because, you know, gotta look the part. But, I mean, you get the idea, right? The main thing that one of the biggest things I'm supposed to be providing is security. And the control issue is when the security's not there, it's still the biggest need. And how do you get security if somebody's not providing it for you? You take control.
Thank you. Yay. Throw it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to wear it.
Okay.
But see, that's why we have this chapter about the mantle. Is most guys don't want to wear it. There are some that want to, you know, they're control freaks, or they just understand that I'm supposed to be the leader, the head, but they do it in a godly way where they love their wife, they understand love, they understand truth, they understand being a provider, they understand the main thing they're providing is security. And they do that and they enjoy doing it because they're being obedient to God.
And the first 23 years of our married life, we didn't know that, Larry, and you let me wear that mantle perfectly.
Yeah,
You could
I didn't even know there was a mantle.
I know, we didn't, neither one of us knew, but I was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got schooled into what a real Christian was, it was hard for you to reclaim your position.
I had to rip it off your back.
Prophet,
There you go.
well, who said that?
Be settled.
No way. So
Yeah, it was-
there was a big adjustment in our
Yeah.
home.
Well, it was hard for me because I'd never worn one.
Right. And to have a voice.
And we had many discussions over who's going to wear this.
Yeah, we did.
You know, I think half of our discussions were about who was going to wear the mantle, right? And yeah, it's like, oh, it speaks.
Right.
You know, so that's a big part. Okay, so you got the single parents trying to figure out how to become one flesh. They have to be able to trust one another, but they trust God first because they know their spouse is not going to be perfect, but God is. So we trust Him first. If you understand what the curses were, you can understand why you see so many marriages where the guy just abdicates his responsibility. Here, you wear it, right? It's easier. But men were created to be the head, and when they're not, they know. There's something in the back of their head that says you're not doing your job. And the wife gets frustrated because she knows he's supposed to be wearing it, but he's not doing his job, so like I have to wear it, and then everybody's frustrated, right? Because they know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know, her desire is to be in control, but she would rather have the security.
Absolutely.
And it's, you know, I mean, we talked about submission back in the first lesson and all that kind of stuff, but when the husband is doing what he was created to do, in a godly way, it's not that difficult for him to be followed by his spouse. Because that's why God made us, right? The world twists everything, perverts everything, and the whole, not to get too political, but the whole feminist movement, it started out, I don't know, I'm not a feminist, but I think the beginning part was just to be able to get equal pay for equal work. But then it became, we just want to be equal, which sort of got twisted into being the same as, right? So the world had twisted this thing about just being equally compensated to, I'm just like, the women are saying, I'm just like a man. And now, there's this weird thing that takes place. And in God's kingdom, equal means equal in value, not equal in purpose. We were created for certain things. And life is good when we're doing those things. Things get kind of messed up if we're trying to do the other person's job instead of our own. Okay. So we talked about men being created in God's image, right? 1 Corinthians 11:7. Man is the image and glory of God. Woman is the glory of the man. Okay, so we see man is the image and the glory. Woman is the glory, not the image of the man. So I think you could assume she is also the image of God. It doesn't say that, but you don't want the woman to be the image of the man. You want her to be the image of God, right? So man is the image and glory of God. He was created to be the image of God and to bring God glory. God provided the woman from the man to be the glory of the man, be the helpmate, be the complementer, not the completer, the complementer, right? So that's important. You tie the image thing back to how things were created in the beginning. It makes a lot more sense that way. We already talked about husbands being the prophet, priest, and king. Prophet is speaking the word, the priest is providing the spiritual covering, and the king is the government in that little kingdom, right? The wife is the queen. She's second in command. Still got a lot of authority. But the king has the responsibility and the accountability. Okay? And the wives are teachers for the most part. They're the ones that are mostly with the kids when they're little, teaching them things. The dad is supposed to be partly a teacher too, but it kind of works when the mom is teaching and the dad is like the enforcer, right? Mom sets the rules, dad enforces the rules, so mom doesn't have to be the teacher and the enforcer. And that's why the single parent thing is really not what God wants, because it's like the hand that is feeding the child is also the one that's hitting the child.
Right.
He's like, which one are you? But the wives are the queen, number 2 in command. They teach the children, they nurture, and they build their husbands.
Edify.
I didn't put that on there, but they're builders of husbands. And one of the other Proverbs, I forget which one it is, the wise woman builds her house, and the foolish woman tears it down with her own hands.
And words.
Yeah, mostly words. So there is, it's Proverbs 14:1, right there. Now, a lot of us have heard, behind every great man is a great woman, right? That's biblical, right? She is edifying him. She's the cheerleader. She's building him up so he can go higher and higher because he's got somebody pushing him up, not pulling him down, right? We've gone through this, I think, before. There's a lot of us that have expectations up here of our spouse, yet we talk to them like they're down here somewhere, right? How's that gonna work? You want them to be up here, but you talk to them like they're down here. It needs to be the other way around. If they're down here, you talk to them like they're up here, they'll get there. Or pretty close, all right? But not the other way. Another one, it's one of those, like if you ever go to Cracker Barrel, they got all those little signs you could hang in the kitchen and, you know, with weird sayings. There's one that I like, it's, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That is basically Proverbs 21:19. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and an angry woman. Okay?
What was that, Proverbs?
21:19. Proverbs. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. All right? Now, one example that we like to use here, and this will probably wrap things up. A godly marriage and family looks a lot like a corporation. Chain of command, certain executive things that people are responsible for. Well, most corporations have a chairman of the board, right? They got the board of directors, there's a chairman, okay? God the Father is the chairman of the board. The chairman of the board is who establishes the vision for that company, for that entity, right? He's the one that gives the vision, right? So the husband then is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer. He's the one that's got the responsibility for the performance of the company or the family, right? He's the one that's responsible. And if he doesn't do a very good job, he gets fired, right? But God gives the vision. The husband, the CEO, is supposed to receive the vision. These guys are supposed to be talking. I could put arrows on both ends of this line, I think, but it's mostly like, he's supposed to be going this way. You know, yeah, God is going this way too, so I probably should have a double arrow. God gives the vision, the husband receives the vision, and I have these going both ways here because the CEO has to tell the chief operating officer what the vision is. And they have to work together. They have to communicate. There's that word. They have to share. He has to share the vision in a way that she can understand it and accept it and buy in and agree. Right? If she has questions, they need to be asked. If there's something that doesn't make sense, you talk about that stuff, right? So he shares the vision. They develop the mission or missions. So the things that we're going to have to do to get to where the vision is, to accomplish the vision, right? Well, the mission is basically the tasks and the goals, this piece, this piece, this piece. So if we get this one done, then we can do this one, and you know, then you get there. It's not like, boom, you just. So the wife is the chief operating officer. We got the employees down here. I was kidding with Kelly that this was going to be like an Amway meeting here. If anybody's ever been to one, this probably looks familiar.
Yeah.
Right?
Flashbacks.
But these are the kids. Now, in a corporation, if the employees aren't doing their job, you can fire them. But you really can't fire your kids. So you need to, be strong and teach. And we'll be talking about that in 2 or 3 weeks, about being able to teach the kids. You set the boundaries, you enforce the boundaries. If that still doesn't work, then you send them to boot camp for the discipline that they need. And hopefully that's as far as you need to go. Anything over that, it's punishment or abuse, so you don't want to go there. But chairman of the board gives the CEO the vision, and And there could be some discussion, so, you know, I'll go this way. You know, there has to be some communication both ways, but mostly it's this way. But yeah, it's like, okay, so here's what I think you said. Is that what you meant? See, that's how husbands and wives are supposed to communicate too. It's okay to ask, is that what you said, God? I'm not sure that's what I'm hearing, or is that really, you really want me to do that? So you just need some clarification sometimes, right? But it's very important to do the communicating here, because you're a team. If you're not one already, you should be. That's the goal. And, you know, the CEO also needs to be able to check on the tasks, you know, get the monthly reports or the weekly reports, you know, are the tasks getting done that are supposed to be getting done? You know, we agreed on these things, and, you know, he's out providing, you know, doing whatever he's doing to provide. In Proverbs 31, that also talks about the wife having, you know, like her own little business, bringing in money on her end of the deal, and so she's not just sitting on the couch watching TV, eating bonbons, right? So, you know, she's taking care of the kids, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. If they're not, then she needs to report to the CEO. Hey, we got a problem. Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And then that's when there's a town hall meeting, right? Okay, employees, here's the deal. Ship up or shape out. Shape up or ship out. So.
And I like Proverbs 32.
Oh, yeah. We went to a marriage conference, or actually it's like a Christmas thing, more of a party than anything. But they had a lady comedian that came in, and she made the comment that her Bible has a Proverbs 32 in it. We should all know there's really only 31 chapters in Proverbs, and 31 is all about the godly wife and everything. And yeah, mine's got Proverbs 32. I put it there. You know, but it's like, you know, sleep in.
Yeah.
Breakfast in
and
bed.
And she gets served breakfast in bed. She gets to sleep in till 10 o'clock every morning.
Yeah. And one of the T-shirts that she had for sale had all these like older ladies, or maybe 40s, 50s. To me, it seems like they were 60s or 70s.
Yeah, they were older.
You know, they're all just sitting around the table, and it's like, it's not gossip if your head's bowed.
And she had T-shirts made like that.
Yeah.
The women.
Yeah, they're all kind of sitting around the little table, and they've all got their heads bowed, but they're talking about somebody. You know, oh dear Lord,
She was hysterical.
pray that Sarah gets over her drinking problem. Stuff like that.
And then you end it with amen.
Amen. In Jesus' name. So yeah, I thought that was cute.
It was the same, her husband was there with her too, and they, you know the movie Dirty Dancing, and at the end Babe goes and jumps up in his arms, and this woman, the comedian, was like 8 months pregnant, and her husband was on the stage, and she went back and she put on a skirt and everything over those pants, and she was ready to run up and flattened him when she jumped on it. They were hysterical, but you talk about being in submission, all this stuff. I'm sorry, I just had to mention that.
Well, well, it's a good point. Proverbs 31 for you ladies. You know, it's she is blessed when she is godly. Her husband talks good about her. The kids talk well of her. Right? So there's a blessing in just being a godly woman. There's also blessings for being a godly man. Right? There's a lot of blessings to be had there.
Right.
So, okay, well, that's about all I got. Anybody else got any comments, questions?
Well, Karen's not here, so it's kind of silent.
Yeah, she usually has a lot of
And
input.
if Karen's listening, I'm sure she'll be okay with this. Her brother died Friday. And she did get to see him this summer. She went back there to visit him. I think some of you were in the class. She rode on the bus 20 hours to get to him. He was back in Kansas City. And, you know, plane tickets are pretty expensive, especially if you don't have a notice ahead of time. And her sister-in-law called her and said he was in hospice for a time and that she needed to get there to see him. So the only way she could go was by a bus. We took her to the station and